Ooh, that looks tasty.
Welcome, folks. Stay the Hungry Gamer is back with Jay Cormier and Sen Foong Lim from Off the Page Games and current designers of Mind Management, which is live on Kickstarter for another few days still.
And we are also the past designers and the future designers of that game. Just to
time doesn't exist for us. We experience time non-linearly, I guess.
And so for those of you whose brains did not explode with that, we're going to talk a little bit about mind management and some of the other things they've worked on and their process and how this came about, and hopefully just have a good time. So to jump right in, Off the Page Games is a new entity. It's got a killer first game. It's crushing Kickstarter right now, but the savvy gamer is probably familiar with some of your work already. What games might they know you guys from already?
Well, we came out of the gate with Belfort, which was our first game that we got signed, which is that right there. They might know us from that. Or Akrotiri or Junk Art, which is D&D, Rock, Paper, Wizard. Those are some of our biggest titles. Sam, why don't you tell everybody about our less popular titles?
Well, less popular.
So the one that he was the lead designer on, right?
Yeah.
No. So it's funny because a lot of it's not even our less popular titles. Like there's some of our titles that are weirdly popular or weirdly hard to find would be popular if they were still published. It's really weird. Yeah. So but wait, there's more is a game that people, when they play it, they love it, but it's out of print. So, and it's hard to get publishers kind of on that track again because, it's a game that was for its time what it was. And then now it's, maybe, I don't think it's dated, but some people might. And then Train of Thought and, games like that. Men in Black, Tortuga. So I get to talk about all the ones that aren't huge sellers. That's awesome, Jay.
That's what I say. Yeah.
I know. You're so funny.
Yeah. But we have another big one coming out sometime this summer-ish.
Yeah.
Which we can talk about because it's been announced.
Sure. Yeah. It's been announced. That's Scooby-Doo, Escape from the Haunted Manor. So that'll be like an escape room style game where you play actually as the characters from Scooby-Doo. And you will be, it's like a choose your own adventure plus a point and click adventure style game where there's a lot of narrative and it's written in the style of a Scooby-Doo mystery. So you get to eat things and smell things and you get to investigate stuff and build traps and all these fun things that the Scooby Gang did, right? So it's pretty fun.
So a lot of the escape room games are one-time plays, and either you've destroyed it or you pass it on to somebody else. Are you going to be able to do replay with that, or does it come with a lot of quests?
No, this is a one-time play.
But you can pass it on.
Yeah, it's totally pass-onable. It's a new word. We just coined it. And it's also a game that is fairly deep. So for that style of game, right? It can take, maybe 1.5 to 3 hours to actually finish it, right? So it's also one of those games that you can play as a family and make it last a little bit longer if you have little kids that like Scooby-Doo. And you can help them with their reading at the same time. They can learn how to read. So yeah, it's really kind of an interesting game in that it's an experience. As well as being a game.
And we avoided using time as a measure of your success because we wanted people to experience as much of the game as they wanted to. So sometimes you might just do silly things just to see what would happen if Shaggy tried to eat that rug. You could try it and see what happens because there'll be a response in the book.
It was delicious. Who knew?
We'll see.
You'll find out.
Yeah. So now clearly you guys have co-designed a lot of games together. Do you do all of your games together, or
no?
No. So we did for the first 8 or 10 or something like that. It was just us, and then we branched off. And we the thing is, we both live in two totally different parts of Canada, 3,000 kilometers apart, which I don't know.
But yeah.
Is it 3,000 miles?
No, it's 3,000 476 kilometers
okay,
apart.
sorry. Yeah, which is a lot. It's other sides of the planet.
So for those of us in America who don't know this, Canada's really big.
Yeah. So basically, I live next to Detroit,
and I live
Jay
next
lives
to
next to Seattle. And
Yeah,
that's
So
how far
neither
apart
of
we
them
are.
is in downtown Canada, folks.
not downtown
Yes.
Canada. And so because of that, we
Bill
both
from Canada.
no, or Steve, but we both have our own playtest groups, which is fine and great, and helps us design together because we each have different playtest groups that give us different types of feedback. But through that, we also have met other designers, and so we've each designed games. Sen, I guess you can talk about the games you've designed, not
Sure.
with me.
Not the games that I've designed, not with Jay.
Cheer.
So, yeah, Jesse Wright and I designed Mutants for Lucky Duck. We designed Kingdom Rush for Lucky Duck.
With Helena.
Which is, with Helena, who is Jesse's partner. And that was a huge Kickstarter success. We raised over $1 million with that one. It was good. And then we've also done Batman the Animated Series, Dragon Ball Super.
Oh, the Batman that just wrapped its Kickstarter?
Different one.
No, we did a different one for IDW. We did so the one that just wrapped was the big miniatures version. We did like a dice push your luck game.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so same license, but totally different style of game, totally different like price point. It's like a $27 game type thing, and that was like a couple hundred. So
yeah.
You gotta tier your releases when you have.
Wasn't there some sort of arena?
Like that.
What's the arena one?
Oh, Legend of Korra. Sorry, the Legend of
Right.
Korra Pro Bending Arena. Yeah. And then we're working on a bunch of other things together as well. So, and then I have some other stuff with other people in various states and forms. But yeah, it's good. Spread your wings.
And for me, I got the.
And Jay, what about you?
Well, I've got In the Hall of the Mountain King with Graham Johns, and I have this game there, Draw Your Own Conclusion, which is just by me. I just did it by my own some. And other games that are signed but not released yet with other designers.
Super secret.
So lots going on.
Yeah. So how did you guys? But you've done a lot together. How did that happen? How did you guys? Because different parts of Canada, different groups. How did you guys come together?
Well, we did live together
in the same
numerous times. We've lived together during our university days in Hamilton, Ontario. We both went to McMaster and became friends through mutual friends. And and we just got introduced to the whole gaming thing. Sen introduced me into the Magic world, like the Magic the Gathering, and a mutual friend.
That's a deep dark hole.
Oh, it was great though.
Yeah.
At the time, it was back like way early stages, like Antiquity, Ice Age, those kind of days where it was still like it was huge, but not as huge as it is now. And it was great, and that kind of segued us into, back then they were called German board games. And from there, we eventually said, why don't we make a game together? We could do that. We're fun and creative people. So we tried, and we failed miserably.
Yep.
What was that? The first game you guys worked on?
It was a game about. So Jay is a huge Indiana Jones fan. He has a shrine, although the shrine is probably non-existent or semi-existent.
I've got it right here.
That's all you have. Normally,
no, I have. You can't see it.
When he was a bachelor, he
Oh,
used to have this huge thing. Like it was giant standees from like a movie store. All his Indiana Jones stuff, all the micro machines and gold, and there they are. I bought him games from Germany that are like Indiana Jones games. We've got some of our artist friends to draw stuff for him with Indiana Jones stuff. There's Matt Kint's art. He's the artist for Mind Management. That's his Indiana Jones thing.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah. So anyway, our first game was a game that was, in that vein of Indiana Jones. It was a tile laying game where you were making paths in the jungle, and inhabitants of the jungle were trying to hunt you down while you were trying to find treasures. And what happened is that you were supposed to try to put a map together, like find parts of a map to then find the location, but this location would be procedurally generated almost, and it would change every time of where the treasure was. And the game stunk real bad.
Didn't work.
Real bad.
Terrible. Yeah. So we just abandoned it. Stopped talking about it.
Yeah, we abandoned game design.
Yeah.
For like a good few years, right? I had a kid.
And I bet you almost every single person who does any creative medium probably goes through this phase where you're like, well, I guess I'm not good at this, and you just stop doing it.
And do you still have prototypes of that floating around somewhere?
I do. They're in my office downstairs. They are.
Yeah.
And during that time, like when we decided not to make games, I had a kid. Jay left the province and moved out west, so we had a lot of major life changes. And then when my son was 2, I brought him out to see Crazy Uncle Jay because flights are cheap when they're under 2.
Free.
So yeah, they're free, in fact. So we brought Ethan out west to see the whales and to see Crazy Uncle Jay. He's not a whale. And we said, hey, why don't we just think about making games again? Because we had played more games by that point. We had refined our tastes. We had maybe grown up a little bit. I don't know. And we actually wanted a way to keep in communication with each other, because we're not the type of people that just call each other up and say, hey, how's that weather? Because it'd be, well, it'd be raining in Vancouver and it'd be cold in London. And then we'd have nothing left to say to each other. So we decided, let's try making games again. And we developed a forum. So basically, like what people nowadays might use Discord for, I guess, we made a forum that housed all of our ideas, and we would write in it like every day, multiple threads. We had, for I think 4 years, we had an idea a day. I think it was about 4 or 5 years that we developed an idea a day. Doesn't mean we made anything out of them, but we would say, what about a game with, magnets? Okay, next idea. What about a game where you're playing a fighter pilot, but you have to be blindfolded? Okay, next idea. And we just have 365 ideas for, the 4 years in a row that we did it.
We got to go back and mine that again.
Yeah.
That's also my question. How many of those actually turned into something on your shelf behind you there?
Yeah, for sure. A few have.
A few definitely were.
I think Tortuga came from that idea about dice things, or Train of Thought came from it inadvertently.
Yeah, Train of Thought came from us playing
an aside.
Yeah.
Sen just basically said sorry, just lost my train of thought, and then in brackets says that's a neat name for a game, and then what would that game be about? And the thread took a totally different direction as we designed a game called Train of Thought based on the title. That's the first thing, like Train of Thought. What would that be called? What would that game be about? And that became a game.
Well, I'm glad you said that about the coming from the title, because that actually kind of leads into my next question. Is so I know Jay is a big fan of mind management, and Matt can. Period.
Sure. Yeah.
And I heard that from Wes Woodbury's podcast, Kickstarter Journeys. But so for this game, did you go into this saying, we're going to do a game about this IP, or did you have the idea for the game and then the IP came along and you were able to put it together that way?
Yeah, a bit of both, I guess. Like, we definitely had elements of this game, and but we didn't think it fit. We didn't even think about making it fit for this game, and we actually designed, 4 or 5 other games for mind management that weren't working, and we just kind of kept failing at it, and we couldn't figure out how to get the feeling, the experience of mind management, which is this kind of conspiracy, paranoia, always being watched kind of vibe, and your mind is being manipulated kind of feeling. And none of these other games we came up with felt like that. They felt like a Euro game where you're pushing cubes around, and we're like, it doesn't feel right. Even though it had the characters and everything from the comic, it didn't feel like a mind management. And then it was actually Sen is like, well, what about this idea that we're working on? Can we kind of alter it and in a way that will make it fit in mind management? And we're like, at first I was like, I don't think so. And then when we thought about it more, we're like, actually, it could work. It could. If we do this, this, and this, that's actually really cool. And we ran it by Matt, and then we played a game with him, and he loved it. And Bob's your uncle.
And so how did the connection with Matt get started? Who reached out to who?
That's a fun story.
Yeah, it's a great story. So we were at Gen Con, and
4 years ago?
maybe more, I don't remember. But it was a while ago.
Yeah.
And I saw a booth, and I was wondering, why does Oni Comics have a booth at Gen Con? And so I just kind of went up to the booth, and I met Charlie.
I thought before that,
the
you were just, before you met Charlie, you were just looking at the Six Gun comics.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like,
For
oh,
sure.
I wonder who you'd have to talk to get the rights to make a game based on this. And then
Yeah.
Charlie turns around and he's like, well, that'd be me.
Yeah, he doesn't talk like that.
Well,
But
that'd be me.
He's a cartoon.
And then
Yeah.
he is not. Actually, he is. He is actually a character in Chew, in the comic book Chew, because his last name is Chew. So he is actually in that comic, oddly enough. Anyway, so Charlie, I was saying, oh, I love the Six Gun, I'd love to make it a game, blah, 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 blah. He said, oh, so you like the Six Gun? Would you like to meet, the writer and the artist? Because they're here. And so the writer and the artist, so the writer is Cullen Bunn, and Brian Hurt is the artist for the Six Gun. And so I got to meet them, which was wonderful. They're both really nice people. They love gaming. Cullen loves DMing. Brian's more of a board game guy. And they had just that year released the Savage World supplement for Six Gun. So the setting supplement, the source book for Six Gun in the Savage World's role-playing system. So that's why they were there. And as we were talking about making a game based on Six Gun and blah, blah, blah. And so I was going to introduce them to, because they loved, at the time, they were huge fans of Dead of Winter. I said, well, John's right over there. Would you like to meet him? And so I was going to bring John over. And then some guy with a beard and an IKEA bag full of games comes around. It's Matt Kent.
No, it's even better. It's even better than that.
It is better than that. But
Because they're
go
like,
ahead, tell.
Well, yeah, they said, oh, you know what? While you're here, you guys should meet Matt. And I was like, Matt who? Kind of hoping it was Matt Kent. And they're like, yeah, Matt Kent. I'm like, Matt Kent's here? And I'm a huge fan. I had just previously shown you a drawing he did for me a long time ago, like that.
Before we even knew each other.
Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be cool to meet Matt Kent. And so we set up a meeting / whatever the next day, and we met and we played games together. And through that, we learned that he had played our game Acrotiri and liked it. And we gushed over his stuff, and it just kind of came out of a conversation of like, oh, I wish, Mind Management would be cool to have a game based on that. And Sen and I are like, oh, really? Can we do such a game? He's like, oh, I'd love that. That'd be great.
Let me introduce you to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was the most, like, I don't know, casual, like, deal. Like, everyone, I don't even think we actually shook hands. We're all just like, yeah, let's do it. And we're all just excited. And so, unfortunately, it took us a good 2 years of development till we got to what we got, because we just kept failing so much. So we couldn't figure out the game, which is fine. And that happens in game design. Like, we're not going to put something forward until all three of us are passionate about it. And I think
that's the difference between how we were working on this one and a lot of the other IP games that we've made. So we've worked on a lot of IPs. Yeah. Some really, really big ones. Some really small ones, but lots. And the thing about them is that when a company buys or purchases the rights to an IP, they only have it for a certain amount of time, right? Like it's usually like a 2-year window to make a game, sell a game, and then they're in liquidation if they don't renew the license, right? And those licenses are expensive. And so a lot of times you're like, yep, that's good enough. Put slap the IP on it and go. And you're like, but I wanted to work on it more. It's not quite a game for that thing. I think nowadays more licensed games are better because we're designing them a little bit differently as a community. And I think the licensors are getting a little more savvy into, they're going to need a longer period than a short period, because a lot of them are going to Kickstarter as well, which is also generating funds in a different way. So anyway, my point being that we weren't rushed. to make this game a game. We were lucky to have the support of the creator-owned brand to say, no, I want this to actually be the best game it can be, which is wonderful. And very different when you have creator-owned comics versus, DC or Marvel or something like that, where it's the publishing house that owns the rights and they just want money. Yes, you have to respect the IP, but they don't, they check for brand integrity. They don't really check to see if it's a good game. Not all the time. Sometimes they do, but not all the time. Right?
Yeah. So clearly, unless I'm totally misreading this, Matt's been pretty decently involved.
Oh gosh.
We're pretty much partners on it. We're partners. He's doing all the art and all the graphic design for the every element of this. So it's pretty wild. With the exception of the Mind Slip token, I have to say that I designed that and Matt approved it. And I'm like, well, that's my claim to fame right there. Pretty cool.
He just designed that on a Post-it, and then he just left, and he'll collect the money later. But clearly, with something like Scooby-Doo, you're not working with the creator.
No.
Of Scooby-Doo.
No.
We'll have a list, like a Bible, if you will, like what's it called? A
style guide.
Style guide of the things that most of it's artistic, but some of it will come into deep play as far as things that they can or can't do. Like we've been working on a Godzilla game, and Godzilla can't talk ever. Godzilla can't be shown to harm or eat people. Like he just can't ever. That's not in any movie. You'll never see him actually. He might chew a bus, and there might have been people inside it, but he can't show people in the bus while he's chewing it.
Huh. What are the benefits and drawbacks to both sides, having just like the style guide versus having the creator there? Because there has to be good and bad for.
I mean the good is having the creator there. I mean, obviously we could be partnered up in the future with a creator that is not as collaborative and maybe a bit more demanding, so that could be a downside. But working with someone like Matt, where he's super collaborative and trusts us to make all the right game design decisions. And the thing about collaborating with somebody who's kind of on the same page, as passionate about making this the best thing possible, 1 + 1 is more than 2, meaning that the game is way better than I could have thought of on my own or with Sen. But by collaborating with somebody who has different skill set, like the design and whatnot, there's so many things he's bringing to the table. I'm like, that is amazing. I never thought that the game could do the things that it's doing. I'm trying not to give away some secrets that are in the game, but he's layering a lot of very Matt Kint-isms in the game, which if you know his work, he's very much about taking advantage of a medium. In comics, he does that all the time. He just did it with a little record. He did his own Kickstarter last year for a mind management record and comic book, like, turn the page when the record's playing kind of thing. And he really took advantage of that medium in a fun way. And it's even being turned into a TV show right now, Mind Management. Yeah. And so he's already...
They'll be playing the game in the TV show.
That's meta.
I know, right?
Meta. Yeah, maybe. We should make them do that.
Yeah.
As if we have any say.
You're welcome. So sliding a little bit off the design process, just a little bit. So,
sure.
There's obviously plenty of hidden movement games out there. But there's not as many hidden movement games as there are, take that card games or something like that. And I found there's a few that I feel like personally I would like to play more than once. There's a lot that I've played that are just, for want of a better word, boring. You sit there and you stare at a board and nothing's going on the board and people make a choice and there's a little discussion. How challenging compared to other mechanics that you guys have used is designing hidden movement?
So it's challenging in the similar vein as like a social deduction game, but also in a different way. So social deduction games are challenging because you need like 5 or 6 people who think differently to play all at the same time. But the similarity is that you can't give too much information away, but you also can't give too little information away in order for players to progress or feel like they're making progress, right? Even just the startup of the game, of mind management. It's funny because the person who's playing the recruiter, the mind management side, the bad guy or bad girl, whoever.
Misunderstood.
Yeah.
Misunderstood. I play the recruiter a lot. Misunderstood.
Yeah, they're misunderstood. They're maligned. They take 5 moves. And that math of saying 5 is the right number took Jay and I a long time. I don't know how long it took us to settle on 5, but it's like, what's the right exact number? So we're giving enough information to the agents, but not too much information. And even that, just that 5 move setup is what we found was just right. But it's hard. It's really hard without playing it multiple times. And so the idea that everything is giving information and trying to get people to understand that, hey, when you get an answer of no, that's actually a ton of information. And teaching people how to use the information that they do get and don't/do get was difficult.
We found that almost to be a negative of the game, in that if you weren't familiar with hidden movement type games or deduction type games like this, a lot of people when they're playing it didn't understand that when you basically would ask a question, have you ever been on a space that had this feature? And if they said yes, they put a token on one of those spaces on the board, and you go, oh, so they were there at some point. You don't know when. But sometimes when somebody would say no, that I haven't, then sometimes some people would be like, oh, darn it, I didn't, I got a miss. And it was interesting to watch those when playtesting, and how frustrated they would get. And through that is how we came up with a way to help players keep track of these thoughts, because this took us a long time to figure out in the playtesting, even up till like after we partnered with Matt, and after we just long into the processes. Basically, once another side story was that we actually had the game signed by a publisher, and unfortunately that publisher went under, and it was through that transpiring that we all decided, let's kind of publish this ourselves. And then once I started taking it on as a publisher, I came across this challenge of like this. If people didn't know what to do with this information when they got to know, I'm like, how can we help them? And we came up with different ideas, like, let's give the rogue agents a notebook and they can keep notes. But then only one person is seeing it, and they don't have a guide on what to take notes on. Well, what if we gave them a duplicate of the board, and they could write notes on the board, on this duplicate board? And even then they were like, they didn't know, and only one person could see it. Like, the other people are trying to see, what are you writing over there? And it wasn't until we finally figured out these, we call them mental note tokens, which I think is kind of funny because they're not mental notes, they're actual physical notes. And they players actually write on them with dry erase markers and place them on the board. And now, as soon as we came up with that idea of this mental note tokens, then an answer of a no became wildly beneficial, because they could write on these note tokens. If it's currently turn 9 and you say, have you ever been on a bookstore? And he says no, you could write 1 to 9 and put an X and put that token on every single space that has a bookstore. And as you start to do that, you start forming a path, because you're like, oh, he didn't go that way, because we know he never was on that space from turn 1 through 9. And that all of a sudden became a huge boon for us to help that balance, to make it not frustrating for players. And we even added a training mission to the game, so that people can actually we actually guide them and we train them. Here's how you do it. Take away all the other extras. Here's the core of the game, and just train them on how to use these mental notes.
So you mentioned the mental notes and started some of the details of how this game works. What makes this hidden movement game different from Fury of Dracula or Spectre Ops, which are the big ones that I think people think of? If someone's like, I want to play a hidden movement game, and the 3 are on the shelf, why?
I think that, well, if you only have an hour, like, mind management always takes an hour or less. Like, I would say I think 100% of our playtests has always taken an hour or less for playing this game. And you can't say that for, once the rules are done, yeah. And I think you can't say that for those other games.
Fury is long.
Yeah. And I like what Rado said when he did our review. He just said that the game has a good velocity. He just says every single turn you're getting information. and that progress just feels so great. You never feel like you're floundering. Like I don't know. I have no idea. You never get that feeling in this game, which you can in those other games at times. So this one just going so fast, the tension just ratchets up really quickly.
And just to be clear, for everyone, we're not slagging off either of those games. It's
No,
just
that's just the difference.
Yeah, just making sure no one thought we were like, oh, not those games. But
no, they're both good games. They're just different experiences.
Right.
Yeah. Rado did say that this is his favorite hidden movement game of all time.
And I'll say, and I agreed with that actually, especially because as I was telling Jay at the beginning, my wife really likes it, mostly because she destroys me every single time. Which is really
now that you're playing by the correct rules.
Even worse.
Even worse.
So you got to get the shift system involved so you can catch up.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
For those that people are watching right now, that we introduced this concept of the shift system because what was happening is as we designed the game, Sen and I have our own playtest groups, and as we play, of course, it's a one versus many game, so the side that lost would have tons of feedback about why they lost, and it was about because things they didn't have and abilities that they didn't have. And it would be great if we could do this. Wouldn't it be cool if it was...
So we designed that into the game.
So we would design that into the game, and what would happen is we'd kind of have a little bit of a difficulty creep as we kind of added more each time to the game because it was like, yeah, it makes sense. Let's add this. Yeah, that makes sense. Let's add this. But then we took it to a convention and we play tested with some actually big name designers like Matt Leacock and Evan Derrick and some other people. And it just kind of broke their brains, and it was too much. It was too complicated, and it was like they're like, I don't know what I can do. I don't understand. It was just too much to throw at people at once, and that was pretty much how and why we came up with a shift system concept, where the loser of a one versus many game gets to open a sealed package and add the contents of that to their next game to make them a bit better.
Do you have one with you there that you can hold up?
Well, yeah, I guess.
While he's thinking about which one is a little comic.
Yeah. Now they don't come in these kind of packages. This is just for the sample. They'll come in a nice, cool game trays package if you get the deluxe edition, or like a tuck box if you get the retail edition. But yeah, and you're mentioning every single one of them is coming with a 8-page comic book written and illustrated by Matt Kint. That kind of gives context, story, brand new context and story to the components that come inside these.
Yeah, and so I've been to kind of follow up on that. I absolutely opened the recruiter one. I said, all right, next time we play, I'm using this, and I told her what it was. She's like, you can't have that. So,
yes, you can. Now the feather in her cap will be if she still wins.
Oh, there's almost no doubt in my mind.
Then she'll be able to say that she beat you and you had that, and now the arms race escalates even more.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I believe right now it's up to there are 6 for each
12.
side.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So clearly you guys have played it a lot. Which do you prefer, rogue agents or the recruiter?
I prefer playing as the rogue agents because I love chatting and talking and plan and like using my brain to figure out and deduce, and like he couldn't be here because of this. Oh, but he could be. Oh, that's a good idea. And collaborating. I love that aspect.
I like playing the recruiter because I'm really good at it. Although I will note that the Kickstarter crew did catch me, and there's a reason why. Jay says it's a hashtag excuse.
But we've been playing the game like turn by turn on the Kickstarter campaign by kind of posting the board state, and then they would take a turn and I'd update the graphic, and then Sen would take a turn and I'd update the graphic, and they'd try to find Sen, and they did.
Yeah. But why I like playing the recruiter is because it actually makes me paranoid, but it also makes me feel like I have psychic powers, psychic abilities. Sorry, Matt. It makes me feel like I can hear what they're planning. Like, as I listen to them when they're playing, and they're like making all these assumptions. Like, oh, I'm gonna play right into that assumption. Then I'm gonna go right where they think I am not. Or sometimes I go, I'm sure he's here. I'm sure he's here. And so I will go like right next to it. So the next turn I will go where they thought I was. Right. So I can't do that when I can't hear them talking. So that's my.
That's why you lost, right?
For losing.
I'll say it was very satisfying, even though they caught me when I played with a larger group. I was the recruiter, and I had this, and I just listened to them. They had me dead to rights, and I listened to them almost talk themselves out of it. And and then they didn't, and they got me. But I think because I sent Jay a message. I had a question, making sure I was doing something right, and I was like, oh, they got me. It's turn 5. But then they almost talked themselves out of it. And it's so much fun. But it's a very different game when you play with just one-on-one.
Right.
You can talk to that experience a little bit, playing just the one-on-one.
Yeah, it's more of a battle of wits because you're usually not talking, so the recruiter can't hear you. So it is more of almost the same kind of thing as playing online, where you just have to really deduce and really more cat and mouse in that case, as opposed to a collaborative kind of. It's more vocal and more hooray with a group.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of like high-fiving and clapping when groups play together. When it's one-on-one, it's definitely more like heads down and mentally burning each other. The other thing that happens on the agent side is, unless you're really good at holding lots of bits of information in your head, it's hard to do as a one. But when you have 4, you kind of divide that labor up. But the other thing that happens when you have 4, or a few more people on the other side, is that it's gaming by committee sometimes, and it can go wrong, or you get sucked into a path of thinking. That's actually, I love listening as a recruiter when people are so wrong in their logic, and they commit so hard to it. And the funny thing is, because the board is pretty small, it's only like a 7x6. Because it's so small, people actually can have the total wrong logic as to why you might be somewhere, but actually be really darn close to you. And that's the funniest to me.
There was a Derek and Lizzie from Board Game Spotlight did a playthrough in which Lizzie was the recruiter and Derek was trying to find her, and he had revealed a token, a number token, I think a 3 or something like that, and then just was so sure that she was going a certain way based on how the tokens lined up, and just had continued for 90% of the game, just was always planning where she was, and then eventually right near the end flipped over a token way over here and it was number 1, and he's like, what? How's that your 1? I thought that was your like 7 or 8. And it totally flipped his mind thing, and he's like, he learned that you have to reveal 2 tokens eventually so that you can at least intuit a direction that they're going.
Right. So clearly you've played with Matt. How did he stack up against you guys, and did you let him win?
No way.
Well, okay. No, I don't let Matt win, but he did once catch me because he caught my joke. I said to him, yeah. I was playing with him. It's the one game where there's all the pictures of it. Like it's
at
Matt.
Gen Con?
Like, yeah. No, at
Geekway.
At Geekway.
Right.
Yeah, in St. Louis, where Matt's from. So, I said, you'll never find me. I could be hiding right under your nose, and you'll never find me. And he thought about it for like a good 5 minutes. He goes, no, you're right here. And I was like, I was on the same space as his only available character. So that was me trying to be cute. And Matt sussed me out. He smoked me out like the rat I am. So yeah. No, Matt's a good gamer. He doesn't think he is, but he is. He's funny that way though.
Oh, great. We just found out our loan just came through for our new house that I'm moving
Yay!
to.
Yay! Congratulations.
And yes, that was the person who destroys me at this game.
Yay!
If you want to segue, I have an art sample to show. If you want to talk about working with Matt as an artist and how the process of that was, or something like that.
Yes, I do. Yeah, this is a solid time to do that. So to tell me. So you mentioned earlier on that Matt is doing, with the exception of the slip token, he's doing all of the art and graphic design. What's that been like?
Like I was trying to mention before about the collaboration, about how this is better than I could have imagined it. Like one of the things that just blew my mind, and I just love this so much, is there's these things called the feature cards. Now the feature cards All they have to be, and all they were in our very crappy prototype, was just a card with the feature, and a feature meaning like a palm tree or a bookstore. And that's all it was on 16 cards. And so Matt, being Matt, he's like, well, can I do something fun with it? And I'm like, yeah, of course. That's why we want to work with you. And this is the kind of stuff he did. He'd like every card, that one is the graffiti. That's all it had to be. But he adds all this extra kind of flavor text. This one's like a pool pass, and all we needed on it was the pool.
The rules for the use of the pool.
Yeah, and this says monks, but it looks like a baseball trading card. Like every card is totally unique and fun, and just it is amazing and full of like not jokes, but
details.
Like details and mind manipulation stuff that is just going to reward players that want to take the time to kind of like look at a lot of the stuff that's going on in this game.
Yeah, and if you don't, no big deal.
No big deal.
The details, they're just attractive cards. There's plenty good going on, and so when I first looked at it, I was like, what am I looking where? Oh, I get it. But I don't know mind management from anything other than the game. But I imagine if you do know it, it's just filled with delightful Easter eggs and references that
more so as you start to open the shift packages. Yeah, absolutely. Now the funny thing about working with Matt was he would send some of the art, and every time I'm blown away. Like the cover, I was like, oh my goodness, that to me is just amazing and fun and just sells the brand right off the bat, and it's different. Looks so different on a shelf. And then we wanted to get the board ready for last summer so that when all of us are going to various conventions, we could actually demo it with a really cool looking board and kind of get people to turn their heads and go, oh, that looks cool. And then Matt kind of worked on the board, and the thing is, our board has some functionality issues that were really important to make the game work. In that the board, as Sen was mentioning, is a 6x7 kind of grid, and in each of the grid spaces are 2 of these features. And that's kind of all that really matters from a game functionality perspective, is we need to see those 2 features really clearly, and we need to maybe kind of need an area where tokens could go that aren't going to cover up those features. And with that information, and we pounded it into Matt's head, and like that's super important. Matt came up with this board, which is entirely different than the board that we ended up with. And I don't know if you can kind of see it.
Yeah, we can see it.
But I was having a hard time knowing what to tell Matt about this because I didn't like it. And it was really, I had to talk to Sen, and I'm like talking to my wife. I'm like, what do I say? Like, here's a guy that I totally love his art and everything he has ever done. And now I have to tell him I don't like this style. This doesn't look very interesting to me.
And we had actually talked about a totally different thing, a totally different look too. And this is how it didn't meet the expectations.
Yeah. And so in starting the discussion, fortunately I had another piece of art to kind of go yay about, and then I got to this, and I was kind of beating around the bush trying to say things in a nice way, but after 2 or 3 sentences he was picking up what I was putting down, and he just kind of stops. He's like, hey Jay, just so you know, I don't like it either. I'm like, oh. Whew. Okay, good. He goes, I don't like it. Like, it doesn't feel like a city. It looks like a game board, and I'm like, so I'm like, okay, great. And so we brainstorm a little bit, and then he's like, okay, I got it. I have an idea. And then he had the best idea, and the game board is amazing. I guess I can show this. This is the small version of the game board, just so I can show it now. And you can look it up online or in the Kickstarter. But now it looks like an actual living, breathing city. But those features still pop. Like, everything's kind of this kind of tan colored brown, but the features are all colored and they pop, and that's what matters in this game, is you have to be able to see those features at a glance. So yeah, this is way better than I could have imagined this ending up being.
So if money was not an object, what would you put in every copy of the game? No object.
I mean, Matt wanted to do minis, but I just don't. I really like the wooden tokens in the deluxe better than minis, because I don't know if you've seen them on Kickstarter, but they're the bust of the character's head, but on the back side is the back of their head, but not just the back of their head like their hair. It actually like looks into their brain to see what they're thinking about and has a little image of what that character is thinking about. I'm like, that's
Mhm.
awesome. That's such on brand kind of cool concept. I like that better than minis. And the minis would be in this game would be kind of blah because these are just regular people. They're not like muscles or strong or guns or they're not fighting. Like they're just so they to me it wouldn't be super exciting to have figures for this.
Yeah, I don't think figures are doing great either. I like what they did. So if you look up the covers for Mind Management, some of the most iconic Mind Management covers are the ones with the faces, and that's what these remind me of. So I think it's super, super in line with the comic IP and
Yeah.
the brand. So I really do like them a lot better. Sometimes
I mean-
wood is better than plastic, man. Well,
Yeah.
I think most of the times it is, but that's
I think the only
my
other thing
bias.
I'd want included, and it might happen, is the solo/co-op app. So we announced that
Mhm.
this past week as a stretch goal if we get to 175,000 Canadian dollars, and we're currently at 135,000 Canadian dollars. So 40 more in 1 week. I think it's possible. Hopefully it is.
Mhm.
And then everyone will be able to play this game either as a solo game or cooperatively against an AI recruiter. And that's what Rado said kept this game from being perfection is an app. So
Yeah.
hopefully we get
So
there.
that's the hope, right? Because then you could play with your wife, and you could beat the game together instead of getting your ass kicked by her.
She'd still find a way to beat me, I'm sure.
So what you want to do is take that loan that you just got for your house and put it into our Kickstarter, and
Yeah, put
then
30,000
we'd have,
into it. Yeah.
and then we'd have enough. Yeah. Just
Yeah,
a third mortgage.
Let me call up the bank real quick. Hold
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, last question. I'll let you guys go. So, now you are not allowed to answer with any game that either of you have ever designed or worked on or each other. So, no, oh, Jay's game he designed by himself. No, none of that. Game night. What are you playing?
I'm definitely a member of the cult of the new to a certain degree where I definitely like what's the newest thing going on and I want to explore new things. It's not because it's culty and it's because like, oh, I got to have the newest thing. It's because I like being introduced to new mechanisms, new concepts, new ideas, and that really gets my motivations and my energies and my juices going. Is like, oh, that's a cool way of doing that. That's really great. So I like being introduced to new things. So it would be I would go and buy a new game and let's play that game.
And how about you, Sen?
I'm actually kind of the opposite in some ways. I do have tons of new games, but I don't have to play them necessarily. I mean, I eventually will. I actually
Once they're old, you'll play them?
yeah. You know, I had it when it was old. That's weird. No, I actually like playing like very classic games. Like I'm just thinking of like Liar's Dice. I would play Liar's Dice forever until we got tired of it, and then we'd play something else. But I like having like a layered approach to games. Like I like a little, like a little an appetizer game, and then I want like a big entree game, and then I want a aperitif, right? I want different games for different times of the game night. So, but yeah, I think having some simpler games is a good thing. Not all games have to be huge and complex. I like simple, elegant, clever games as much as I like the big complex ones. I'm not much a lifestyle gamer anymore. Like I don't necessarily have to own every piece of, Gloomhaven or whatever, and I don't have to own every Magic card. I already did that. I don't need that anymore, right? So it's I would rather just play lots of little games. I like variety. I think that's what I'm trying to say. But it doesn't have to be new. I could play old games. It just has to be variety of stuff.
And so the real last question,
Mhm.
What game, and mind management aside, are you guys the most proud of that you actually got to market?
That's a good way of putting that. Because on one hand, if it says what's our favorite, I might have just said Akrotiri because of the fact that it feels like it's one of these games where we introduce something new, the way that you procedurally generate the map to meet the demands of your map cards, and that felt like that's not been done before, so that felt like we added something, it was new. But as far as what we're most proud of getting to the market, I actually might say Junk Art, because that was so long in development and it just felt like such a cool game, and it was just so hard to get that publisher to sign it, that I felt really proud about getting that one out to market.
Yeah, I think I'm with Jay definitely on the Akrotiri thing. That Akrotiri for me and Jay is sort of like this testament that we weren't wrong when we started designing games. We just didn't have it down yet, because we took ideas from the old,
True.
jungle game and put it into Akrotiri when we were looking for something to like kind of, the rug that ties the room together. That's what we were looking for. We had everything else, and we said, well, what are they doing? What's their motivation out there, floating around in these islands trading goods? Oh, they're trying to find hidden treasure. Okay, now we got it. But I'm going to disagree on Junk Art. I love Junk Art, don't get me wrong. Junk Art is probably going to pay for my kids' education, but that's not the point. I think that for me, as a huge nerd, Dungeons and Dragons, Rock, Paper, Wizards is probably my kind of the game that I'm proudest of for being on the market and that I had a part in. Because
but it'll soon be replaced
Dungeons and Dragons, man.
It'll soon be replaced by Scooby-Doo.
Yes, because Scooby-Doo is my favorite thing of all time. So there you go. And I mean, WWE Headlock Paper Scissors maybe is pretty close to the top there too, just in terms of IPs.
And mine might get replaced by a game that's coming out that we can't talk about. That's after that has a crazy IP that I couldn't believe we got allowed to do. So that's exciting.
Yeah, but then Mind Management.
And then Mind Management. You said we couldn't say that.
That's why I said
other than Mind
100% is Mind Management for Pride, because obviously I'm the publisher on it in addition to designing it. So that's doubly.
Well, so being the publisher, what's next off the page?
That's a good question. Off the Page Games came into existence because Matt and Sen and I got this game, the rights back to this game from a publisher that went defunct, and we decided let's do it ourselves. So I created this company just to make this game. And now that this game has found some amount of success on Kickstarter, and we'll see how we can grow that success afterwards, that I'm like, well, what can I do next? So my whole motive and purpose from this company is to make games based off of creator-owned comic books. That is my kind of purpose with this mission of this company. And I've got a few ideas, and I've got even one game that's been pitched to me from a really well-known designer. And I'm kind of just trying to put all the pieces together and see what's next. But it's going to be a creator-owned comic book that hopefully the creator is as cool as Matt is to work with.
So it sounds like you are going down the full publisher hole of, a designer can come say, hey, will you publish this? And you're going all the way. It's not just going to be a something that you guys do.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
If it makes sense, right?
Yeah. I mean, I haven't yet, I guess, but I'm like, the game that was pitched to me, the pitch was super cool, and I'm really intrigued by it. But the designers have said that the game's not fully ready to show yet. So I'm like, okay, well, tell me when it is, because I'm excited.
So the next time we do an interview, he'll just have like a big old cigar and a bunch of gold chains and
all that board game money that just comes rolling.
Yeah, he'll just be deep into the corporate side. But thank you guys so much for taking the time today. Everybody, there will be links to the Kickstarter in the description. I believe, right there. Under Sen's huge finger there. I believe the time when this posts, there'll be about 5 or 6 days left, so get in quick. And
you didn't use the catchphrase.
Yeah. I forgot. Hey.
What was it again? I haven't stopped.
I can't remember now. What was it?
Are you hungry yet?
Oh yeah.
Are you? Is that what?
Yet?
I don't know. But you got to do it again because we just messed it up for you.
Yeah.
Here we go. Are you hungry yet? There we go.
Is that the David Caruso version?
Yeah, that's good. David Caruso version of it. That's awesome.
As always, thank you all so much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Thank you.